Hello, dear freedom-loving tribe. I'm Freigeist von Lebenskunst, German futurologist. Today I want to make a video about Jordan Peterson, who is one of the most influential conservatives of our times. I think he is, from all the videos I saw, a very honorable man with noble intentions. The problem that I see here is that his historical worldview is quite flawed. He propagates patriarchal historical worldviews that are just wrong. They are scientifically wrong. I can guarantee you this. I can guarantee you this as a studied archaeologist for myself and as somebody who was my lifelong interested in history and looking at the backgrounds. Background mean how historical worldviews are formed. None of what we find nowadays in historical textbooks is really right. It's written by victors. It's written by conquerors. It's often written from a very monocultural viewpoint, and the most that we find nowadays in textbooks is just not correct. And Jordan Peterson uses this flawed historical worldview. Okay, let's begin. Where is he completely wrong? First point, the family, the conservative core value number one, is not natural at all. Study our history and you will find out that humans for millions and millions of years lived in herds, similar like chimpanzees, like gorillas, similar also like lions and wolves, dolphins and elephants. It's a special group formation of all higher social animals. Humans are part of this social complex of group animals, okay? And this is not a family, it is a community. And the community don't live in couples of one man and one woman, they live in gender groups. The men build male teams, and the women built a woman's team. The children, as a third gender group, don't get educated by mom and dad. They self-organize from lactation on, in self-organized children groups where they learn to self-organize as free human beings. The family was founded by invaders, especially the Indo-Europeans who came to Europe and Asia to conquer land and people. So what they did, they were destroying the tribal communities of these people they conquered and forced their captives in couples to breed them, to breed slaves and to submit their children under education. The family is the most suppressive social institution humans have ever formed. Please, Jordan Peterson, do me the favor and study the ancient Greek history. It's all written there. Even if in the history books is not written that the family is an artificial institution, but it's described very, very well. Please stop to spread misinformations that the family would be, since dawn of human evolution, our natural social institution. That's outright a lie. Please stop it. And I tell you why it is important to stop it. The family education is diminishing humans to servants, to slaves. It keeps them down. It isolates them in the ego. divide and conquer is a strategy of conquerors to divide their populations. The Greeks and the Romans were specialists in this. They destroyed tribal communities and their gender groups by pulling the people, by isolating the people. You understand this? To propagate this means to propagate systematical slavery without reflecting this. Okay. Another point. Jordan Peterson talks about that patriarchy is not really existent. He calls it tyranny. That's partly right. What is right about this? That after the Greek elites, who were still a long time in tribal structure, after they submissed 90% of their conquered population, as Indo-Europeans, they were not coming from Europe. They were conquering Europe and made slaves. And this slave population that was a majority in this kind of societies overthrew after some while in many city-states the tribal aristocrats. And the Greeks called the kings of this family mob tyrants. So there were family people with a lot of education-based neurosis and psychosis who are really sick people. Since then, the leaders of the patriarchal world that were not tribally organized anymore, and since Alexander the Great, these are all leaders. These leaders are sick people because they were raised as slaves in families. The family is the slave breeding institution number one, and you can imagine if this institution breeds kings who had the experience of disempowerment and traumatization due to their education, that they let out all this sickness to their people. So the tyranny is a direct consequence of patriarchal family foundation. It belongs together. Education itself, the next point. To educate children is not natural at all. It diminishes them to servants, to slaves of their educators. In reality, it is like the free will that is so often used by Jordan Peterson. The free will indeed is connected to the awakening of the anal phase in the adaptation period of little children. With 2 or 3 years, they become independent from their mother and leave their mother. They don't leave the tribe, they still live inside the tribe, which is surrounding them, encircling them, embracing them, sheltering them, and giving them a home to grow up by curiosity and playfulness and social instincts as free social human beings. Who is destroying the children group? What conquerors did at the very first thing that they did. If one destroys the children group, the people who grow up as children in such a family society will not grow up as free people. You will find nearly no free will, because the free will is the own will of the child that is able to unfold very, very early in the beginning of the anal phase, like the psychologists call it, to define its own territory, to define its own social conditions, with whom it's friend and with whom not. The A free man and woman begins with 2 or 3 years. When a child is educated, there is no real chance that this has happened. So an educated child will always become a slave, even if he or she don't want to know nothing about it later. You can see it in society, how degenerated most educated people are, how deeply traumatized they are by submission under an education. And it's always, even if it comes with love, it's always an enforced submission, because a child has to obey. Our society is working like this. It makes slaves because our ancestors were enslaved. All these civilization degenerations that come from education, that come from being submissed by one's own society, all this neurosis and psychosis, somebody like Dr. Peterson tried to treat. In reality, he is propagating these diseases because he don't see, and he don't want to see with his conservative worldview, that the patriarchally enforced kind of society we live in makes us all sick. So the only solution is to return to tribal communities with self-organized gender groups. The emancipation 1.0 that we are facing now in its ending. It's over, you can say. Why? Because it is too highly individualized. It follows the divide and conquer strategy of the patriarchy. That means we have outside single men and single women who have to care for themselves without any tribe. Many don't have even friends anymore in this time. So, the way out, you can see it in the red pill movement very clear. The way out is to build gender groups. Men begin to build brotherhoods again. And now women should begin to build sisterhoods. And then they should leave their children free in self-organized children groups where can grow up really free, sovereign human beings and not patriarchal slaves. Well, I think this is just the first of a series of videos that I have to make and to publish, because I feel that that there's really an urgent need to correct the conservative how to call it, the conservatism nowadays has lost contact with historical realities. It's just ideologically flawed. It has no real background. And I back Jordan Peterson as a scientist. Please be a good scientist and don't propagate anything that you call wisdom or knowledge that is not backed up by scientific evidence, and you cannot back up your family story. You cannot. Please stop it to drag people deeper into patriarchy, because we try to escape nowadays this tyrannical system which is at an end, destroying us, destroying the world. Please, Jordan Peterson, stop propagating this dangerous, dangerous patriarchal worldview. Thank you very much.